Welcome back, historians. Brian here as your personal guide through the 19th century art world. We've been talking about the Enlightenment in the last couple of units, as many people aim to free themselves from the shackles of European empires throughout the 18th and early 19th centuries. But as the Age of Revolutions raged on and nation-states formed and shifted throughout Europe, many people felt as though they lived in a cold, calculating, lifeless world. The natural world was studied by scientists and mathematicians. Philosophers discussed humans and governments in a state of nature. But humans didn't live in a state of nature. They lived in a practical world. A world that, in their perspective, was in upheaval. A romantic movement emerged in the early 19th century in which people sought to explore their emotions, individuality, and personal relationship to nature as a means of understanding their place in the world. Today's essential questions are: 1. What prompted an artistic reaction to the Enlightenment? 2. How were celebrations of nature, individuality, and human emotion depicted in romantic works of art? And 3. How did the ideals of Romanticism align with the ideals of nationalism? The big picture today is about situating someone's personal experience into the changing world during the Age of Enlightenment and the Age of Revolutions. Focus on the question: how do people process their lived experiences in different ways? We've learned throughout this unit that the world of the 19th century was politically and socially turbulent. The Age of Revolutions challenged imperialism. Nationalism challenged the old conservative order. People's connection to society became cultural as opposed to legal. Alongside these changes were technological and economic innovation on an equal, if not larger, scale. Water power was used in 18th century factories. The steam engine was widely adopted a few decades later, allowing factories to be built away from rivers as well. The average worker came of age in a world unfamiliar to their parents. As society changed rapidly, it was easy to feel confused, lost, or left behind. Many had questions like, where does my value as a human being come from? Am I merely worth the labor I represent, or is there something more to my worth? To navigate that, Enlightenment philosophy texts detailing how truth came from reason and calculation felt lacking. A new movement, Romanticism, emerged to address these feelings. Before we detail it, let's check in with our first essential question. What prompted an artistic reaction to the Enlightenment? Maybe you said that the individual had powerful emotions about living in a rapidly changing world that were not addressed by rational theories. In many ways, the Romantic movement was a backlash to the Enlightenment. Where Enlightenment thinkers like Newton, Locke, and Voltaire would have espoused reason and civilization, Romantic artists revered emotion and nature. And while Romanticism was carried out through many mediums, poetry, music, and painting were probably the most celebrated. To truly sum up what the Romantics believed, maybe we should let English poet William Wordsworth explain.
One impulse from a vernal woods may teach you more of man, or moral evil and of goods, than all the sages can.
See, Romantics believed that truth could also come from human experience, which was characterized by emotions and sentiment. And feelings could only be understood by the person feeling them, so meaning can come from within the self. Thus, emotions experienced during Wordsworth's walk through the woods held powerful meaning to the individual, even if it was meaningless and inconsequential to the rest of the world. Intense emotions, private thoughts, and imagination were celebrated. Romantic writers glorified heroes and the creative power of the common man. Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Kubla Khan explored themes of creative power, ecstasy, and harmony with nature. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's novel The Sorrows of Young Werther was a story of a boy so hopelessly in love with a married woman that it drove him to suicide. Jakob and Wilhelm Grimm celebrated German culture by publishing a collection of fairy tales. In America, Ralph Waldo Emerson led the Transcendentalist movement that rejected conventional schooling in favor of exploration and connection with nature. French writers like Victor Hugo published works such as The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Miserables, which reflected the struggle of individuals against a hostile society. Gothic novels featured horror stories at medieval castles filled with fear, violence, supernatural events, and grotesque scenes that conjured powerful imagery. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein tells the story of a young scientist who creates a sentient creature from body parts of the dead as a moral critique of unfettered scientific experimentation. Composers emphasized emotion as well. You can hear a stark difference between the mathematical precision of this bouncing classical Mozart concerto and the devastating emotions in Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. These works also featured heroism and national pride, bringing classical music to the middle class. Franz Liszt was a celebrity treated like a rock star. In fashion, people wore bright colors. Romantics were interested in medieval art, and an exaggerated revival of Gothic architecture was a component of the Romantic movement as well. Painters began a trend of actually going outside and painting nature in person, glorifying the landscape outside of the city. Let's revisit another essential question. How were celebrations of nature, individuality, and human emotion depicted in Romantic works of art? Heroes and people who overcame struggle were featured and celebrated in literature. Connection to nature was glorified in poetry and paintings. Passion, horror, love, and more were all explored as sources of meaning. In a changing world, the dejected and downtrodden sought out works that mirrored their own emotions. In those works, they felt a sense of connection to other people. Works that shared their own cultural traditions, be it language, folk tales, traditions, attitudes towards heroes and villains of the past and present, spoke to them. A celebration of the individual and the common person's emotion and creativity brought meaning to many who may have otherwise felt like their lives were simply a tool of the factory owner. This painting by Eugene Delacroix, called Liberty Leading the People, painted in 1830, depicts a heroic scene of rebellion during the French Revolution. The woman in the painting symbolizes liberty. Knowing what you know about the values of the Romantic movement, how do you think they align with the ideals of nationalism? Maybe you said that a desire for connection primed people to participate in the shared culture celebrated by nationalists, or that feelings of isolation and helplessness led people to look for others around them with similar experiences. You'd be hard-pressed to make the case that the Romantic movement and nationalism had a cause and effect relationship, but it is clear that they were linked by sentiment. Perhaps both were reactions to the individual struggle in the New World Order. Whatever the case, the Romantic movement was eventually replaced by realism in the later part of the 19th century. Perhaps a blend of the intellectual precision of the Enlightenment and the fantastic emotions of the Romantic movement. A reversion to the mean between the polar extremes. But the industrial world that prompted the Romantic movement in the first place is definitely worth taking a closer look at. In our next unit, we'll relive the 19th century through the lens of economic and technological development, exploring how the European economy changed as mercantile empires gave way to free market societies. We can't examine the 1800s through just the lens of state building and social ties because, as you know, history is everywhere. Hey.